Jeremy Brown. I'm the Assistant Park Supervisor for Waterford Oaks, and I manage the Oakland County Farmers Market. I'd like to welcome you all to our 7th season of Cooking with EdibleWOW here at the Oakland County Farmers Market. Here we are 6 years later, and we've done nearly 40 demos here at the market. This year is definitely different due to the global pandemic. Last year we got cut off our last couple demos, but we're regrouping and we're making it work this year. So this year we're going to shoot them all for Facebook and release them on Saturday, the day of the scheduled demo. And we have demos scheduled twice a month through April. And you can go to oaklandcountyparks.com to the farmers market page and see what demos and chefs are coming up. So we've got a great list of chefs. Been collaborating with EdibleWOW magazine now for several years, and very thankful for that partnership and that collaboration. The market is open on Saturdays through April from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So we still want you to come out and support the local farmers and vendors that participate here. With that said, I'm going to pass this over to Rob with EdibleWOW magazine.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you all very much. Again, our 7th season. We couldn't be more excited about having Chef Metevia from Slow's Barbecue with us to launch our 7th Cooking with EdibleWOW at Oakland County Farmers Market demonstration. We've had a phenomenal run at doing this, and nothing is going to keep us from not doing the demos here at the market. And again, do come out and support the farmers and the vendors here, because it's because of you and that they're here. Chef, we've been working together for
many years.
Yes, the magazine.
Well, over a decade.
It has been over, and the beauty is it's not only a working relationship. Michael has become a dear family friend, and the accolades go on and on. If you know anything about the food scene in Detroit, Michigan, it's Slow's Barbecue, which is an icon. Chef is not only the chef and the creator, but also a partner. The list is from the best sandwich in America, mentioned multiple times in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. Any celebrity that comes into Detroit is going to dine at Slow's Barbecue, and then they wind up talking about it on Jimmy Fallon. We couldn't be more excited about this relationship and moving forward. And as we have in the past, we have the EdibleWOW gift basket that is chock full of local products from the vendors here at the market and around our food community. If you go on the Facebook page and you like, you comment, and you share, you will be entered into a drawing for the basket. And just quickly, before I turn it over to Chef, I want to let you know who is in this basket. Al dente pasta, Bobby and jam, crust cookies, Forever Summer soap, which is made with Calder eggnog. Pretty cool. Gus and Gray jams, Sugar Bush maple, High Five salts, Mighty Good coffee, Milford spice, Mindo chocolate, Sandhill Crane wine, the Brinery, Veggie 8 vinegar, Westwind milling, White Lotus cheese, Zingerman cheese, Oakland County Parks gift package. It is well over $180 worth of products. Go on Facebook, like us. With that, Chef.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Oakland County Farmers Market. We're kind of ease into this season with something pretty simple here, and I also want to touch base and kind of talk about what's going on in the restaurant industry, not just in Detroit, but the whole state and the world around us. So let's first talk about the dish. We're going to do some blackened salmon with a warm honey leek vinaigrette tossed with spinach, and we're going to put all that would be your choice of either a mashed potato pancake or waffle, which I know sounds perhaps odd, but if you've had other sorts of potato pancakes before, it's not that off base. And the waffle was my son's idea last week when I was messing around with leftover mashed potatoes, and I think he had a good one. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to put this batter together. Normally with leftover mashed potatoes, they can be kind of a pain trying to reheat them and not get them all starchy and pasty. So if you could find other fun things to do with them, you know, it's just a nice usage. So I have leftover mashed potatoes. I'm not going to make mashed potatoes here, but we'll talk about them. Use more butter. That's what it is with everybody in their mashed potatoes. Nobody uses enough butter. If I'm using like a pound of mashed potatoes, I'll use over a quarter pound of butter. Like, you really want these things creamy. So I've got about 2.5 cups of leftover mashed potatoes here. All my potatoes are potatoes. Get them local, get them organic if you can. Butter, salt, and pepper. That's all that's in here now. And it's all chilled and cold. We're gonna put it in our mixing bowl here. And then we're gonna add a couple of eggs. And I'll say the same thing about the eggs as I did the potato. Find something, something local. Something, that you can trust. So get the eggs in there. And then flour. There's about 2/3 of a cup of flour here. You don't have to get incredibly accurate with this stuff. So dump that in there. A little bit of milk. It helps with the creaminess. That's milk's thing. It's probably about 3 tablespoons of milk we're going to add. About like that. Now the potatoes are already seasoned, but you're still going to want to add a little bit more salt and pepper just to help make up for all the eggs and milk that you just added. So it's probably about a teaspoon, or what I would call a pinch. Let's do 2 pinches. And some pepper. These are actually peppercorns I smoked that I got from Milford Spice. You don't have to get all fancy with your peppercorns if you don't want, but it was kind of a fun project. So, if you got potato, flour, egg, salt, pepper, milk, that's it. That's your whole batter. I brought my old school KitchenAid from home. It does help. If you have like a stand-up mixer or one of these things, I would definitely recommend using it just for the sake of speed and, creaminess. You don't want this thing lumpy. You don't want lumpy mashed potatoes in general, but when you're making these cakes, you definitely want a smooth batter. It'd be reminiscent of a pancake batter. I'm gonna add a little bit more milk to it because it's a little too thick. Now, when I made these things at home, it was just kind of goofing around, making waffles out of potatoes, but it turned out so well that it just got me thinking of the other things that could be done with this. I think a nice stewed meat with something like this would be really nice, or something bright and fresh like what we're doing with this spinach. So you could really go in a lot of directions with this. And like most things with batters, you can really play with the flavors too. So, it's thick, it's not going to be a runny batter, thick batter. Get it all off of there. Then we'll set this over here. So, what we're going to do next is heat up our pan that we're going to do some pancakes in. We're going to do the salmon in it. We're going to do the vinaigrette in there, most likely, unless I mess the pan up. We'll see. And we're going to warm up our waffle iron too. All right. So, batter's ready, pan's heating. Let's move on to this vinaigrette. I know that you can get Leeks in the market right now if you come down here and visit, so take advantage of that. And honey, which are really the 2 things that inspired me to make this vinaigrette. So it's partially leftovers and partially what do we have around that the farmers are providing us with. Now, we're not making a ton of food here. This is, it's a nice sized piece of salmon, enough for a couple of people, so we don't need a ton of vinaigrette either. The leeks, you can just kind of cut these down into, little rings. You don't need a ton of them. So get those there. And the vinaigrette is, like most vinaigrettes, pretty simple. It's vinegar, apple cider vinegar. If you don't like apple cider vinegar, red wine vinegar would be good with this too. It's olive oil, there's the backbone of the vinaigrette, those two things. We're going to put some honey in there. We're going to put these warm sauteed leeks in, and it's going to be, kind of like a sweet and tangy thing going on. And once we get that warm vinaigrette, we're going to toss it with our spinach. Not enough to cook it, but enough to just wilt it up a little bit, add a little bit of warmth to it. So let's put these things in some kind of bowl. And I should probably plug this waffle iron in like I said I was going to. Put that there. All right, waffle iron's heating up, so that's exciting. It means we're almost there. While that's heating up and that's heating up, I just want to kind of talk about the restaurant for a minute, not just the restaurant that I represent, but restaurants in general and kind of what we're going through right now. Obviously, there's a lot of restrictions on how you're allowed to go out and dine and how we're allowed to interact with our guests and serve them. And it's put forth a lot of obstacles, and I think what we're seeing are a lot of restaurateurs rising to the occasion and doing everything they can to not just protect their staff, but to protect their guests. Unfortunately, we get a lot of negative blowback from that as well, but that's the time to stand your ground and do what you feel to be the right thing for your staff and for your community. So as horrible as this has been for so many restaurants struggling through this, I try to see it as a positive opportunity to remind people of how strong and committed some of these restaurateurs are. Even in the best of times, running a restaurant is not an easy thing. It's very thin margins that even what appears to be the most successful of restaurants could be teetering on the edge. It's a very difficult business in any time in history, but right now, it's a struggle. And I'm proud of the people working their way through it, and I'm appreciative of any of you that are coming out and supporting restaurants and being kind. That is one thing I've seen a little bit of with servers. Just they're putting themselves out there in a job that could be risky for them right now, and it's a perfect time to show them how much you respect that. And there's a lot of negativity out there coming into restaurants that we need to filter back out. Like, let's get back to restaurants being a fun place to be and a safe place to be. I'll probably think of more to ramble on about that, but I can tell already this thing's getting hot, so we're going to move back to cooking. So thank you for listening to my diatribe. Let's make the vinaigrette. We're going to add a little bit of oil. Man, this thing got really hot really fast. Good for you, mini burner. So I'm going to turn our heat down to about medium on this because it did get hot fast. I wouldn't recommend just grabbing hot pans like this unless you do work in a kitchen, and then it's probably something you think is fun because we're crazy. All right, nice and hot. Get the leeks in there. And leeks, I don't know if everybody out there has experience with leeks. They're kind of mild. I think they show up in potato leek soup a lot is probably what people are most accustomed to when you hear the word leeks, which kind of popped into my head too with what we're doing now, because here's potatoes, here's leeks, back together again. All right. Let those guys cook for a minute. Let's look at this waffle iron. It is not ready. So, we're waiting for that, waiting for that. Let's cut our spinach up, which we're not trying to chop this stuff up. We're really just taking the stems off of it. It's already nice and clean, so that's about that. And spinach obviously, wilts up like crazy when you cook it. But again, we're not really going to cook it. We're just going to wilt it up a little bit. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get something warm and savory, something fresh and bright. All right, these leeks are doing their thing. I personally like to brown them a little bit. It's just a flavor thing. You know, there's that fine line between browned and burnt, and sometimes when it crosses the line into burnt, it's still really good. I'm not going to burn the leeks, but I'm just saying if it were to happen, I think we might have something. So let those go. Spinach, that was nothing. That's ready. Now let's make a waffle. I don't know if you have a waffle iron at home. If you do, I mean, it's just like making any other waffle. Heat the thing up, make sure there's a little oil smeared in there, which I already did. I'm going to take my little measuring scoop, because I love measuring scoops. I'm going to set that down in there, and then just waffle it down and let it do its thing. And then once we get this out of here, we'll move on to doing the pancake version. So, leeks are looking good. Let's turn these leeks into our warm vinaigrette. I'm going to add the rest of this oil. And at this point, I'm just going to shut the heat off. These cast iron pans, they hold heat so well that, 10 minutes from now, it'll probably still be warm. So I got the oil in there, the vinegar, the honey. I like putting the honey in after there's already a little bit of liquid in there so it doesn't stick. Come on, honey. There we go. You don't need a ton of it. Unless you like a ton of honey, then go on and do your thing. Have a nice sweet vinaigrette. You always want to taste as you go along. Not enough honey. And honey is another way that you can kind of have fun with your dishes, because there's so many different varieties of honey out there, depending on where you got it, what the bees were dining on, all that. Somehow the best honey I always have seems to come from around here, though, so I don't know if that's just a personal taste thing or your terroir, as they call it, or what, but something about that local honey. All right, vinaigrette. I'm just putting this in here just to stay vinaigrette for a few minutes. So there's that. And this pan. You know what? I'm going to switch this pan out to another one, just for the sake of speed for this salmon and cleaning all that vinegar out of there. This is one of the few times I really like using a nonstick pan, is for something like pancakes or for fish. I use cast iron a lot at home. It's almost all I use. And every time I bust out the nonstick, it's like, why don't I ever use this thing? Like, it just makes everything so easy. All right. Now, I chose salmon for today because it's, for one thing, a fish that people really seem to like. Salmon's popular. It has been for a long time. And it holds up to flavors really well. I've got this blackening spice from Milford Spice, which is awesome. And something like salmon has enough of its own flavor to hold up to a lot of seasoning. If you were to get something more delicate like flounder or halibut, something like that, I wouldn't go so to town on putting paprika and everything all over it. You'd probably just do salt and pepper. But with salmon, you can have a little more fun. So, First thing I'm going to do is trim off this little extra piece of belly fat. That's just going to end up kind of curling up and burning anyway, and I definitely know 2 dogs at home that would eat this, so I'm going to set this aside. And then go back to this. Couple ways you can go. You can skin it or you can leave the skin on. That's another personal preference thing. I don't know. Let's leave the skin on it. If you do that, you're going to want to score it just a little bit down the back. Just these little slits in there. And that'll help the skin from curling up on you too much. So, got a little piece of scale on there. You know, one thing I think I forgot to bring today is a plate to put this waffle on. Oh yeah, look at that. You wouldn't even know if it's a potato. So let that rest there for a minute. We're going to move on to seasoning this salmon. And again, I got this blackening spice from Milford Spice, add a little bit of salt to it. Milford Spice actually has a lot of really, really good pre-mixed spices that I would recommend.
I just have a small one.
Sure.
If that'll help.
That'll work. There you go. Pat it on there. Don't ever rub it. Like people always refer to, like even in barbecue, like rubbing the spice in. You don't want to rub it. I think they say that to trick people. If you start rubbing it, what happens is you kind of impact all the pores with spices and it never really penetrates the way it should. So you don't want to rub it. Pat it. All right, let's get our waffle off of here on our little mini plate. That's so cute. Since the waffle iron's just sitting in there anyway, let's make another waffle in a sec. All right. Now, the salmon. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this pan and eventually a fair amount of butter. It is a nonstick pan, so you don't need too much oil to start with. Partly in there for flavor. Spread that around. Now when you're doing the fish with the skin on it, you're going to want to start cooking it skin side down to kind of sear that skin up. If it was skinned, you would probably start on the other side. But the important part is this pan being really, really hot, which it is because I could see a little bit of smoke coming out. So you're going to put this in here and kind of hold it down for a few seconds, because you're going to notice after about 10 seconds or so that the skin wants to contract a little bit, and that'll kind of curl your fish up. So if you just give it a little bit of time with your hands on it like this for that skin to crisp, it'll stay flat for you, for whatever that's worth. Once that cook away, we've got the waffle. And you know what? We probably got, still sticking on there, so that's good, that's fine. So right now we're kind of at a downtime between waffle done, vinaigrette done, salmon cooking. I forgot how big this piece of salmon was. So let's move on to tossing this spinach, let that wilt up a little bit. And we'll do kind of like a little mini version on this, on the waffle without the fish, and then we'll do one with the fish and see it a couple different ways. So I'm just gonna hook up a little bit of the spinach, probably not even that much. So just like a little handful of spinach leaves. I'm gonna pick up some of these leeks, throw those in there. A little bit of the liquid. And just in this room temperature pan and this warmness, we'll just let this sit for a second. And you know, it'll still be nice and fresh like a spinach salad, but you'll find a few of these leaves a little warmed up for you. So on the fish, you could kind of go back and look at it and see, perhaps you could see that it's getting a little white along the bottom above the skin. So it is starting to cook through there. So what I'm going to do next is add a little bit of butter to the pan, which is just, well, it's flavor, isn't it? And moisture. This is unsalted butter, by the way. We've been adding enough salt to everything else on our own this whole time. And I personally, I'm just accustomed to unsalted butter. I just feel like I have more control over it. Let's throw another waffle in. Look at the snowman. And squish her down. All right, so we're going to kind of move this butter around the pan, and then what we're going to want to do is kind of take it into a corner, start picking it up and putting it over the salmon. And you see how the butter's turning a little brown? That's good. That's, well, it's brown butter, and it's got kind of a nutty flavor to it. So if you keep basting that over this salmon, you'll get a little bit of that unique flavor in there. Just like basting a little turkey. All right, let that cook away. Now that would be just like a little quick snacky version of it. You know, not everybody is into seafood or into lamb or the myriad of other things that I would pair with this. Yeah, go the vegetarian route, you know. It's clearly not vegan, and I just don't know that it's the healthiest snack either, to be honest with you, but it's good. So yeah, there's your vegetarian version of it that you can just have so much fun with. The way you flavor the potatoes, the vinaigrette, all of it. That's just a base idea that you can work from. All right. Look, this salmon is wanting to be flipped over, which you want to do carefully. I mean, you got all this melted butter in here, this oil, like, I've been burnt enough times in kitchens to let you know the thrill fades quickly. Now you can see on this other side how the skin is crisped up. You can see the scores in there. They're not the prettiest scores I've ever done, but they did their job. The skin is still flat. It's crisp how it should be. Now we're going to let that finish on that side and really start to blacken. And blackened is not burnt. And I feel weird even having to bring that up, but it seems to come up in real life so much, a confusion between blackening something and burning something, and the fact that oftentimes blackened things will look burnt, but it's typically reflects the seasoning in them. If you have a seasoning that's really paprika heavy, chili powder heavy, like, yeah, it's going to come out really dark. If you do a blackening season that's more garlic forward with less paprika, you'll have something that looks a little bit lighter. But a lot of this is just going to come down to your personal taste. So we poke it and we pinch it. It's kind of hard to describe the feel that you're looking for. You want it to, you want your finger to sink in a little bit, but you want it to push back at you too. I mean, there are techniques that people use, like with different parts of their hand to mimic it. I don't know, I've never tried it. I've seen my own hand change sizes over the years, so I don't know if I can rely on that. I'm just used to, you know, fight back a little bit. Because if it's undercooked, it's not going to have any give to it. It's just going to be firm, like it's when it's raw. If it's overcooked, my finger's just going to shoot in there. That thing's almost done. Got some more of our fancy plates. I'm gonna check the other side of this. We're almost there. I personally like salmon cooked around medium. You know, that's my thing. Some people like it well done. Some people like it rare. I mean, it's a personal thing. I'm gonna cook this one to around medium though. Medium, med rare. And it's gonna rest after I take it out of here too, and as it rests, it will continue to cook a little bit. So let's flip her back over. There. That looks nice, doesn't it? Honestly, I'm not even a huge salmon person, and this looks pretty good to me. I like gravlax, I like smoked salmon, so when I'm doing something like this is salmon out of a pan, I tend personally to hit it a little heavier on the spices just to, I guess, counteract the salmon flavor. I don't dislike it, it's just not my number one. All right. Just let that sit on its skin for a couple more seconds there, and I think we're gonna be good to go. We got another waffle coming out. We're turning these waffles out pretty quickly. All right, now our trusty cast iron pan is back. And let's find something to set this salmon on. I don't really want to set it on foam to rest. Here, let's do this. We're not cutting anything else. Let's just set it on here. Now, like any piece of meat, let it rest for a minute. It's not just because you're going to burn your mouth if you dive right into it. It's a moisture thing. Like when you get stuff super hot like this, or a steak, like basically the moisture inside of it is just going crazy, running all over. You know, am I going to boil? Am I turning into steam? What's happening? It's like this violent environment. So when you bring it out and you let it cool off a little bit, that environment settles down. Because if you cut into it now, well, everything's running around trying to figure out what's happening, all the moisture is just going to escape. If you let it rest for a few minutes, that could be a steak, a chicken, whatever, give it 5-10 minutes, depending on how big it is, everything settles back down. You cut into it and your juices stay in. So it's just a matter of showing a little bit of patience. Now, if we can get this pan hot enough, we'll do our final plating with the pancake. One of the issues with cooking off these little burners like I'm on a camping trip, they're not always the hottest things. And these actually are from my camping supplies, so there you go. Get in there. The fish is done though, so no matter what goes wrong now, I think we're going to be okay. Oop. All right, there we go. So let's go back to the spinach. We can just dump all of our vinaigrette in here now. And this is just a real basic start for you know, what you could do with this spinach, obviously. I believe that there's someone in the market right now that has watermelon radishes. If that is still the case when you're down here, that would be really good with these. The crispiness of them, they have a really just unique flavor. I would highly recommend throwing those things in here. But, you know, it's a salad. Have fun with it the way you do with salads. If you like cucumber in there, put cucumber in there. Maybe you like a little mild cheese, you know, do your thing. All right, this thing's heated up. Where'd my butter go? There it is. All right, now, how'd I lose my batter? All right. I personally prefer the waffle version of this that my son hipped me to, just because all those little, you know, flavor pockets that you get from a waffle. But not everybody's got a waffle iron, so let's do this pancake. Now, as far as plating this, you know, I guess I have that restaurant-y way of doing things where all of a sudden everything's stacked on top of everything else. You don't have to do it like that. You put it in a bunch of separate bowls, put it next to each other. You know, I can't reinforce enough with cooking, bringing yourself to the table, you know, not just taking what I'm telling you or somebody else's, they're telling you and just kind of blindly following it. These are just things for you to start out on, you know, bring yourself to the meal. Flatten these out a little. These are way easier to cook in the nonstick too, but we already salmoned that thing up. All right, and the salmon. The skin is still on there, if you recall that. Some people like eating the skin, other people don't. I mean, it's a personal thing. I'm gonna leave it on here for now. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of cut this thing up a little bit so we can put it on there in more of like a sharing format. My little diatribe about blackened and burnt, I almost walked across that line with these things. But that's basically it, your little potato pancake. Oh, and I'm going to put a little bit of butter on them. I feel like we put enough butter in this meal for some reason. So we're going to soak a little onto those. All right, let's cut this thing up. And we'll just kind of take these pieces, you know, around the edge of the waffle. And we've got this whole other chunk here to go with whatever we're cooking next. But that's basically it. You've got a mashed potato waffle that could be pancakes. You've got your spinach, your warm leek and honey vinaigrette that you could have all kinds of fun with whatever vinegars you like, your local honey. You have the blackened salmon that could have just as well have been a piece of skate wing or perch or whatever it is you like. So take these ideas, bring them down to the farmer's market and look around and become inspired by what you find here. And use your leftovers. That's another thing. The mashed potatoes, use your leftovers. People throw leftovers away too much. This is not a time to be wasting. All right, pancakes are done too. Now normally, all of you guys would be here, and right now is when I'd ask if you have any questions. So if you do have questions, I guess you're just gonna have to track me down at the restaurant, which is not that difficult to do. So yeah, come down to Slows, say hi to me. Our Michigan Avenue location is open Thursday through Sunday right now. Our carryout location has hours much beyond that. So come visit, come say hi, and I hope you perhaps learned something today. Thank you.
That concludes our cooking demo. I'd like to thank you all for participating. Although you couldn't be here in person, I'm glad we were able to pull this off. If you were here in person, you'd be able to smell the fantastic aromas that are going around the market right now. Chef's really done a great job. Thank you for participating. Thank you for all your participation in the past. Chef has been a big supporter of the local farmers market here. He's done several demos. I think they participated in Oakland on Court. But again, it's very much appreciated. All of your efforts, it helps our local farmers at the end of the day, and it's very much appreciated. Again, we are going to broadcast these on our Facebook pages. You'll find it on the Oakland County Parks Farmers Market Facebook page, as well as EdibleWOW and Slows. We'll post the recipe as well, and if you'd like to come in this Saturday, we will have a printed version of that recipe, along with a chef's bio. And again, Milford Spice will be providing her blackened spice to everybody that attends. Just go to Milford Spice stall and she'll provide that with you. Again, the market is open on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. We'd encourage you to come out, support your local farmers, and stay tuned for all the demos we have coming up. Great time. And I'm going to pass it over to Rob.
Again, thank you very much. Our 7th season here. We miss you all. We are thrilled to have Chef with us as always. Remember to support the restaurant industry, please. Come to the farmers market. What Michael shared with you, it's heartbreaking, but we are here for one another. Again, like us, comment, share for the drawing in the basket. We also want to point out that one of the contributors is Elegance Distributors, who's going to be a big supporter, Chef Brian Kanak, who's been with us over the years. We thank you again for participating.